Sophia Castillo,
Hi there.
our Prop 65 expert. Will you tell us about what's been happening in California, how companies can, how they can combat Prop 65, or how you would advise them to?
Yes, it's so much fun and such a pleasure to be here, and I've been having such a exciting and neat day so far, and I love how Jenny set me up with the topic of risk, because Proposition 65 is just one big risk analysis for people and companies selling products in the state of California. So for those of you that have not had the unfortunate experience of being educated in Proposition 65, the law was passed by voter proposition in the early 1980s and was passed by a group of concerned citizens that intended to regulate and make California consumers aware of products sold in the state that contained a lot of chemicals. And by a lot of chemicals, I mean had chemical concentrations that were so noteworthy that if you, for instance, as a parent, were shopping for your children at the grocery store, you should be aware that they should not be eating baby food out of said plastic container. The interesting thing about Prop 65 is that it was given what's called in environmental law a citizen suit provision. So Proposition 65 is enforced by interested citizen groups. And like what we learned from Jenny, what this means is there is an incredibly aggressive plaintiffs bar in California that would love to sue you for an alleged violation of Proposition 65, or at least to send you a demand letter. And so how the law works is this, and it's really interesting to think about, because on its face, Proposition 65 is merely a warning law, and a warning law that has very specific statutory warning language. So if your product is sold in the state, if your product contains a chemical on the Prop 65 list, theoretically, according to plaintiffs' attorneys, you should put a certain warning on the product that tells California consumers that your product has these chemicals in it. Now, peeling back the layers of the onion, that's not exactly what the law says. What the law says is if, as a California consumer, you purchase a product and your exposure to the chemical is over a certain threshold level, then you need to warn. So folks in industry and folks in the food space are faced with a situation where if your product has a chemical in it that's on the Prop 65 list, you don't have to warn, but then you need to take another step in the inquiry analysis, which is, okay, so say my product has a little bit of this chemical. Is anyone really going to get exposed to it at a level that might cause concern and might require me to put that warning label on my product? And so food folks in particular find themselves in an interesting and in-between space where some of the smaller businesses say, I can't even afford to wrap my mind around the cost of dealing with this issue. I'm not going to sell in California anymore, which is unfortunate, and I have to say extremely common for some small food businesses back east. They're just starting out. They pull out of the market entirely, and it's incredibly sad. For larger businesses that do a great deal of business here in California, the inquiry is different, and it is, okay, my product may have a residual amount of X chemical in it, but I need to go and I need to hire a toxicologist to do a risk assessment to understand how much of my product the average consumer is actually, in this case, eating, and whether or not there really is justification for me to put this warning label on the product. So to put some meat on the bones, acrylamide is a huge topic in the food world, and I'm sure everyone in this room knows what acrylamide is. It's a fascinating chemical because it was first used in industrial processes and even in water treatment in Europe. And as chemistry and toxicology have evolved, we've also realized that acrylamide forms when foods are cooked and browned and roasted and when they get crispy, and it's kind of just a natural thing. It's not a chemical that's added or poured on or could be extracted if you make your food product a different way. As luck may have it, Prop 65 has acrylamide on its list. So food folks that are selling products in the state of California that are crispy or brown or crunchy have been faced with this incredible task of saying, gosh, is my food causing cancer? Does it really have acrylamide at a level that would require me to put this warning sticker on my product that's frankly sort of a big deal, even in California? I mean, no one really wants to pick up a box of water with the Prop 65 label on it and drink a box of water knowing that it's possible it could cause you cancer. And so acrylamide is a really interesting example of how the food industry in particular has dug into the science. And as industry is engaging, we're seeing that the science behind the acrylamide listing really isn't clear that acrylamide causes cancer. And particularly with the coffee industry in particular, folks have banded together and pushed back from a policy perspective. The FDA has issued a letter saying that it doesn't support Prop 65 warnings for coffee in particular because coffee has tremendous health benefits. And I think if there's one takeaway, it's that don't think about Prop 65 in a binary fashion. That is, my product has been tested and it has lead in it, I have to put the label on. You might not, and you probably don't have to, but take a minute to take a pause, look at your friends in the industry, look at your trade groups, reach out, do some online research, and you very well may have a defense and a good reason to push back.